Hey, welcome to Fireside Gaming. I'm Billum, and I have finally finished that D&D table that I've been posting about on and off for the last few months. After about, I want to say it was 7, maybe 8 months, I have completed this table, and it was a real challenge, and it took a lot longer than I wanted it to, but it's finally done. We played on it today. It was awesome. Everybody enjoyed it, thought it was really cool. All of my party members were really happy with it. As a DM, I was happy with it because it gave me a lot of extra space to work with. As an update to something that I had posted before, there was a flood in my basement, and some of that water got into the TV that I had found on Facebook Marketplace. It was a 50-inch on Roku TV that was from Walmart. I got it for, I think it was like $100. So that was our cheap solution to have a TV in this table. And I thought everything was going good. I put the TV in under a tarp with a dehumidifier, and I pulled all the water out, and I thought we were good. And then the day before D&D, whenever I was going to mount the TV, I noticed that all along the top, which I should have pictures of to go with this video, all along the top it was murky and brown looking, and there were bits of dirt and things like that. It wasn't something that I wanted to be a permanent solution for the table with that kind of mess in it. D&D was the next day, and while I knew it was possible to clean a TV, I had never done that before, and I wasn't comfortable with doing that. Especially rushed. So instead, what I did was I ran to Walmart and bought a 50-inch Roku TV. Only for it to not be the same model. Walmart had updated their TV mold make or whatever in the time that I had been working on the table, which was unfortunate because the new TV was thicker. It was a thick boy compared to the other TV. And that brought about some problems. Some of that I'll get into with this next section of the video I have. But yeah, you know what? I'll just let myself take care of that whenever I explain it. Let's jump to that. All right, so this is what the finished product looks like. And bear with me, we're going to be a little shaky cam because I'm walking around here. But the table stands about 25 inches tall. The bottom of the table is 22 inches. I made it a little too short. Some of our players are too tall. I'm gonna have to bump the table up with like blocks or maybe put some wood on there and screw them in the bottom just to extend the legs. The legs also need a little bit of work if we're just talking about pros and cons. I've got latches here holding them in place, as well as latches on the other sides, the insides, just to double up for safety. That does have, unfortunately, a little bit of wobble back and forth. It doesn't wobble too much that way, but if you're doing it back and forth, it does. So this is the result of the original TV was damaged in the flood, so I had to go and buy another one. I bought the same TV from Walmart, but they had changed the model size, and because of that, this was about 3/8 of an inch too high. And so basically, the day before D&D, like the night before, I got a hold of Amaretto Lime, and we brainstormed, and we ran to Lowe's and grabbed some lumber, and we just made a little frame around it on the table, and then put the plexiglass on top of that. And I'll go ahead and grab the remote here, and turn this on to show you guys what it looks like when it's on. So we'll go over here to Roku Media Player, and photos. We have a USB drive plugged in, and for example, we come in here and we'll do the ground floor of this in. Pause it because otherwise it'll slideshow and go between them, so we have to pause it. And as you can see, this is how maps look displayed on it. Because this was a bit of a rush job and there were some changes made last minute, we didn't get around to staining this wood, which honestly I actually think it looks nice. It kind of gives it some pop. Maybe it would have looked nicer stained even if it was a darker stain. And this is basically my view whenever I am the DM. I guess I'm standing a little closer. I would be standing about here, so I can easily see the table. I can't reach it super well, but that's what the other players do. They just move things for. I give commands and they move, stuff like that. But it works out really well. Also, everyone has cubbies, so kind of darkness, you can't super see that. But these are about thick enough that you can put, you know, like a player's manual and or a player's handbook and like a Tasha's Cauldron or a Xanathar's in there. And there's also plenty of room for phones and dice and stuff like that. And because I have so much room on my end of the table, I can set up my DM screen and everything like that, and then one of our players has a dice tower that he sits here, and we can have all of that, and it doesn't have to, we don't have to deal with the map. If we, like, you know, the map getting in the way, we don't have to unroll maps. We can just, you know, oh, you guys move from the first floor of the tavern to the basement of the tavern, or, you know, second, or this would be like the third floor, the owner, the tavern master's room, or the second floor, which is what I was going to go to. I went the opposite way. So, like, you go to the opposite side of the tavern. And forget that. We have hanging LED lights up. You guys can probably see the reflection in the video. We haven't taken them down since Christmas. They're kind of just nice having up at night. Makes it really easy to see if we have to come out in the middle of the night and we don't have to turn lights on. So we've just left them up. So that's probably showing up in the video on the reflection, but that's all that is. But yeah, and this is the view, you know, that players would have. And, you know, just to give an example and crouch down here, yet again, everyone has their own little cubbies. They're not, like I said, they're not super deep, but they are deep enough to store a good amount of stuff. It's a really good solution. The only problem, and this is like the biggest problem with this table, it's heavy. It's dang heavy. 4 of us carried it up from my basement today. And yeah, there's going to be some handles put on this thing. Unfortunately, because of the TV change, I had previously shown in other videos that I've got this little cutout here. And this is a USB cable running an extender, I guess, technically, so I can plug in my thumb drive, which has all the maps on it, and I can just unplug the thumb drive, because as you can imagine, it's hard to get down in there and reach into things. I don't know if you guys can actually see down in here. You're not going to be able to, but there is back in there a power strip that has 2 plugs on it and 2 USB ports. And originally, I had fans under the TV, but because this TV was so much thicker, I had to take those fans out, so those don't work anymore. And because it has a big fat bottom instead of like a thin one like the other TV had, there was no way to route the TV's power cable over here and plug it into this port, making it hidden, and then this port would drop down, and that would have powered the fans and some other things. So instead, you just come under here, you can see that cord hanging down there, and it's plugged into an extension cord, and that is how the TV is running. Not ideal, but it works. There's talk about putting a Raspberry Pi in this, or something like that. Now, I'm sure, you know, if any of you are woodworkers or anything like that, you've probably seen some mistakes. This is my first time ever doing a project of this scale. I've basically never done anything like this. I've never done any kind of furniture building. I think the most I've ever done is cut border and like baseboard and trim to go around a couple rooms in the house, and that's it. And I'm sure that's pretty obvious. But me and Amaretto Lime put a lot of work into this table, and I'm pretty happy with how it came out. It does suck that we have screws showing here. We tried to do this to where there were no screws showing. That's why there's like dial rods, cut off dial rods all around the table connecting these wood beams to the support, these wood boards to the support beams underneath. But in the last minute of it and trying to get everything done, and it was the night before D&D, and me and him were up like until 1:30 in the morning working on this, and we both have kids, you know, have to get up early and all that jazz, but it works. I'm pretty happy with it. Is it perfect? No. But this made playing D&D a lot nicer today. I wanted to make sure to get this video and do this video after my players had got to see the table, but that's happened, so I can actually post this now. So, yeah, and if you're curious, we scored the plexiglass with a knife, just a utility knife. We broke it off, we put it on, I sanded it. Emerald Lime scored it, actually, and did all that because he's a tradesman. He's just kind of more familiar with this stuff. And I sanded it all down, so it's a nice smooth edge and everything. And then we used Gorilla Tape to hold it down. Double-sided clear Gorilla Tape. And it works well. It might need some more, like, pushes on it. There's little air bubbles and stuff you can see. But this is that D&D table I've been posting on and off about for a while now, and it's excellent. It was expensive, I'm not gonna lie. This whole endeavor, which, I made mistakes because this was my first time doing something like this, which meant I had to spend more money to fix my mistakes, and I had to buy tools that I just didn't have and everything like that. And to taking into account all of that stuff, this was probably... I probably spent about $1,000 on this table. Now, granted, some of those are like tools that I will use later, so you've got that. But yeah, it was expensive. Granted, it was also stretched over like an 8-month period. I think maybe not 8 months, maybe it was 6 or 7 months, but it was stretched over a long period. So it's not like everything got dropped all at once. But do note it was definitely a bit pricey. Sorry, I'm a bit tired. We've been playing for 6 hours and playing D&D for 6 hours and lack of sleep last night. I am quite tired. So yeah, this is the table. I don't know if Recorded Me will have anything else to say, but if not, thanks for watching, and until next time, take it easy. And I do have things to say, other me. A couple of things that I wanted to note about this D&D table project, just in case people had some questions. We used, I think it was 5 or 6 ply wood for the base of the table. That turned out to be way too heavy. Oh my gosh, I would cut it down to like 3 ply. The legs are 2x4s screwed together, cut to 22 inches each. They have traditional folding table latches on them that allow them to be folded up, and those weren't as sturdy as we wanted, so we bought some like gate latches to put on the other sides of them to kind of just add some extra support. It's not great, and I'm looking into more permanent solutions, something that'll allow it to fold while still being a bit more sturdy, whether that be a board in between the legs or something like that. The wife, my son, and I also made a trip to Home Depot, and we picked up handles to put on this TV so that it would be much easier to carry. I've got a little picture of them on screen. We were debating between the left ones and the right ones. I asked my D&D chat or my D&D group in Discord, and we ultimately went with the left ones. I think they're going to be easier to grab. They won't dig into the hands as much, and they are solid metal, whereas those square ones on the right are actually hollow metal. So I think those left ones will be stronger. I think that's ultimately the best choice we had available to us. Additionally, I will note that if you've not seen my other videos, there are holes in the back of the TV to provide it with passive cooling. So even though those fans aren't there, it still got plenty of air during the 6-hour session it was on, and it didn't overheat at all. So passive cooling for the win. My final thoughts are that there was a lot that went into this project that I didn't think about, like how much sanding was going to be required. I bought like iron-on veneer so that the plywood wasn't so rough around the edges, which worked beautifully, by the way. To get a nice smooth finish on the table, I actually sanded it with a brown paper bag, and that worked beautifully. That was wonderful. I was surprised by how well that came out. Such a nice smooth finish. The top of the table was done with polyurethane. The base of the table was done with lacquer. And that's because I did the base of the table first, did lacquer, and holy crap, the amount of fumes that came up from the basement to the rest of the house, I had a headache. It was horrible. And I was like, we're not doing this again. Even whenever I did the other side of the base of the table, I did it outside in my backyard. And the fumes were still strong enough that our AC unit was pulling them into the house, and it still smelled horrible. So I went with polyurethane for the top of the table. Now, one other thing that is worth noting, just as a final thing, is that if the TV ever needs replaced, the bottom of the table and the top of the table are secured by about 20-ish, 20, maybe 25 screws on the bottom, and I can just pull the entire top of the table up, and the base of the table will be there with the TV mounted on it, and I can replace the TV, hopefully with one that is the same size if that ever has to happen. But part of the purpose of buying a new TV was the longevity of it, so that it shouldn't fail anytime soon. That's my hope. But when the day comes that we might have to replace the TV, it won't be too hard of a process to do. Would I advise somebody to do this? If you have the skill set and the tools to do so, it's really not bad. If you are learning like I was and making a lot of mistakes along the way, I still enjoyed it. I enjoyed it as a learning experience. I enjoyed it as something that I get to be happy and be like, look, I made this. But it was a process. There was a lot of work that went into it, a lot of time and a lot of money. And those are definitely things to consider if you're looking to build your own D&D table with a TV built into it. Learn from my mistakes, plan better around what you have. And I think that's what I've got to say about it. It was definitely worth doing and it has a lot of satisfaction to it, but it's definitely not something that everybody should jump into and try to do. If you have perseverance or you don't mind playing the long game and waiting to work on the table over a decent period of time, go for it. It was definitely a fun experience and it's a really nice product at the end, even for somebody like me who was an amateur. And with that said, here is the actual ending. Thank you all for watching and sticking around as it's taken me so long to get this table done. And until next time, take it easy.